Okay, so I should take attendance. Stacy, are you here? So this is a presentation about nonlinear warfare. Social engineering using, stop already. Social engineering using nonlinear warfare. I wish I brought my readers. So what we have here is it's a case study basically, and why is this not working? Anyway, I guess I'll just be flying by the seat of my pants because my notes aren't working. Hi. So, and we have the DNC hack. So when people talk about how Russia hacked the election, well, we're really talking about the DNC hack. And the point of this presentation, the point of the peer-reviewed paper, which is published, I'll give you the actual URL for that if you want to go download it and read it, is that when we say hack the election, what is hack the election? Well, beyond the information warfare part, we have this actual hack of the DNC. And I'm sorry for those of you who hate CNN. I should have used Fox News. I'm sorry. So what we have is a situation where a nation state used the proxy in order to break into an asset, a political asset. And as a result, that information was leaked back to Guccifer 2.0, which ended up in the hands of WikiLeaks, which then disseminated it, and it was actually used, it was leaked, and it was really used. You can say that it influenced the election, or it may have not. I don't think that I'm saying that our current president was elected because of this operation particularly, but we've had information warfare dating back for years. So it's now come to the forefront. So this, in this case, is specifically a case study in what happened in this specific case. So who's familiar with the Estonia hack, where basically the Russians took down the Estonians, they took down the banks, Estonians used online resources in order to vote. In West Virginia, we're now looking at online voting using the Estonia model. So when the Russians took down Estonia banks and other critical infrastructure, because they moved this statue to a Russian soldier, which was in their city square, it's an example of nonlinear warfare. Instead of rolling tanks, they used cyber. I've accepted the word cyber after 20 years. Cyber means in order to take down infrastructure instead of rolling tanks into their country. In the case of the Georgia incursion, they took down all kinds of critical infrastructure and defaced websites before they ever rolled the first tank. So this is an example of Russian asymmetrical warfare. So now what we have also as well in the case of the DNC hack is social engineering. So who can tell me what social engineering is? I'm sorry, I'm a professor, so I'm going to ask questions. Yes, you in the black shirt.
Kind of like I guess you could call him a con man, in a way?
Yep.
A simplified version of it?
Exactly. So it's not anything new. Social engineering has been around for a long time. So social engineering is this idea that you can trick people into things that they would do that they would not otherwise do. And I will have to give a big shout out to Lynn Schwartau, who runs a company which really deals with social engineering and defeating social engineering. I wrote a book called Building an Information Security Awareness Program, which is about defeating this non-technical attack. Not all attacks are technical. We'll get into that a little bit more as we go on. So what is social engineering? Well, in the case of the DNC hack, John Podesta, who was running Hillary's campaign, got this email, which was sort of a larger sort of phishing campaign against many different sorts of people. I mean, it's not specifically targeted. In this case, it probably was targeted. It's John Podesta, so he's, hey, you got something wrong with your oh, thank you for some water. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I like to stay hydrated. So in this case, what they did was they sent them this message saying, hey, there's something wrong with your Gmail account. Who would not want to fix their Gmail account, right? You change your password. So they sent them this bit.ly link. Who clicks on bit.ly links? Everyone, exactly. We all click on bit.ly links. So as a result, he clicked on a bit.ly link and he was compromised. And the specific software that was used in this case in the malware was Fancy Bear. Which, you can't have an APT attack without a logo and also usually a song. What else you need? T-shirts. So CrowdStrike, who did the forensics on the DNC computers. So they didn't call the FBI, they called Cloud. I'm going to get myself in trouble. CrowdStrike. No, CrowdStrike. Sorry, I didn't mean to say CrowdStrike. We actually have graduates there. So we have the situation when I use a specific type of malware in order to take over the DNC infrastructure and exfiltrate data, which was embarrassing to a lot of people in the DNC, which was leaked. This is I don't know if you all know this or not, but we have this thing called, we have these intelligence organizations to actually look into this stuff, and they write reports. So there was an intelligence report written about this specific attack after CrowdStrike did their digital forensics, and this is the key judgments that came out of that, which is the Russians tried to influence our election. Also, water is wet. Does anyone in this room think that a foreign country would never try to influence our elections? I know. It's amazing, isn't it? But in this case, this is probably the first time the intelligence agencies have come together and said, this is happening. So this is how Russia hacked the election. So what we do moving forward, that's my next talk. If you come to Secure WV, www.securewv.com, I'll tell you about the rest of the story. That sounds like Paul Harvey now. So there was an intention to affect the election. We know that. Blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of notes under this that apparently I can't see. Apparently I need to print those out the next time. If anyone knows how to use PowerPoint better, please see me after this talk. Thank you. So the part of this was information warfare. They also found out that the Russians had basically a troll army. And I don't know if you all know this, but 4chan is not your army. No 4chan lurkers are in here? 4chan is not your personal army, right? So basically what they did, who's heard of Weave? Wow, you all need to know your history. We've actually ended up after the AT&T situation where he was put in jail for he was basically going through a URL and changing numbers at the end of the URL in order to see people's accounts on AT&T, which they got thrown in jail for. He's thrown out with a technicality. But where did Weave end up? Who can tell me where Weave is now today?
Isn't it like Iran or something?
No, he's in eastern Ukraine.
What would he be doing there, Bill?
Well, he's there because he's working for a very rich Ukrainian who is sponsoring his time there, making trolling basically. He's the king of the trolls. I used to spend a lot of time studying Weave and the idea of trolling. But then after Charlottesville, I gave up. When he wanted to troll the poor woman who was killed in Charlottesville when she was run over by a car, I was like, that's it. Trolling is still an interesting thing. It's still something we do, as Sam can tell you, on Facebook especially. But we have this idea of information warfare, and this has gone on forever. Military units have information warfare units that go back for years. So it's nothing new here. But they were able to subvert things like, who can tell me what the hacker ethoses are? Has anyone ever read Steve Levy's book on hackers? Well, do yourself a favor and read more. So some of the hacker ethos is information wants to be free, right? So the Russians have leveraged this against the hacker community so that they've gotten leaks. You've got the situation with Bradley Manning, now Chelsea Madding. We've got, anyone ever heard of Julian Assange? WikiLeaks, right? So the situation here is they actually sold material, and they said, hey, look, this is really important. We need to get this out. We're going to use you hackers to get this out. So they've leveraged hacker groups, hacker ethos, in order to further their national interest. So Guccifer 2.0 was the person or persons who took credit for this specific hack. Who could tell me who Guccifer 1.0 was? No, there's actually a person who's been prosecuted who was the first Guccifer, but in this case, this is Russia. It was really interesting in my first year seminar class this year when I had to teach 2 Russian nationals about hacking. And we had to talk about this stuff. Now, I had to preface it with, first of all, this is nothing against you personally, but we need to talk about this. So Guccifer 2.0 is the person who's probably a group who, what are you taking pictures of? Is this going to end up on my personal record?
CCC?
The CCC? You're going to get me assassinated, aren't you?
Love you, Bill.
Bye, everybody. So Guccifer 2.0 is a person, if you read the online articles, but it's actually a hacker group. We're pretty sure. So this is the hacker ethos. Memorize it. There'll be a quiz at the end of this presentation. We'll use Quizlets in order to do this. So what's the first hacker ethic? Anybody? Louder.
Access to computers should be unlimited and total.
Thank you very much. What's the second one?
All information should be free.
Thank you very much. What is the third one? Mistrust authority, right? The man sucks. Go ahead.
Nobody trusts authority.
Exactly. What's the third one?
Meritocracy.
No, which is one that sort of hurts me because it's not about degrees. It's not about how much education you have. Most hackers are self-educated. So I came from the 1990s where we sort of come up by having mentors, right? And then we got to the point now that we have degrees. So I hope that you all, if you're at an age where you're in college, you study this stuff because we have degrees in this stuff now. So I teach at Marshall University in Digital Forensics and Information Assurance, and we teach people how to break into stuff. We don't talk about it. We actually break into computers with permission and write reports. So we think we're different than a lot of programs out there. So what's the next one? I'm like,
hackers should be judged by their hacking, not bogus criteria such as degrees, age, race, or position.
That is absolutely correct. We have a very encompassing community in that we don't care where you come from or what your educational status is or what your race is or what your age is or where you're from. And that's sort of the beauty of the hacker community. What's the next one?
You can create art and beauty on a computer.
That is correct. So that's awesome.
Russians did.
Yeah.
So there's no problem with the Russians hacking.
No, okay, that's fine with that. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. And what's the last one?
Computers can change your life for the better.
That is correct. So Has computers changed your all's life for the better?
For the most part.
In my case, yes, it has. That's a whole. I had degrees in political science and journalism, so I sort of came up with, hey, I came up through the hacker community. I have no SCP, so as a result, I was able to teach this in. So how was this used by the Russians in asymmetric warfare? Specifically, they used the same software that was used to attack the DNC in the specific app. It's an Android app, and it was used by the Ukrainians in order for artillery targeting. So there's an app out there for everything, right? And the Russians were able to take over this application in order to figure out how to destroy artillery before it was ever fired at them. And according to the literature, there's over 9,000 incidents of this. I'm sorry, I had to put over 9,000. I'm so sorry that people lost their life, but it's a meme. Sorry. And there's some. There was a major findings in the report of CrowdStrike. I mean, CrowdStrike. I'm sorry. Which they found a number of different findings, which you can read. I'm not going to read them to you. You can read all this. So it actually ended up in 50% of loss of forces in the case of Ukrainians. So why are we talking about Ukraine? There's been a Russian incursion into Ukraine when Ukrainians are fighting them back. Weave is in eastern Ukraine with this trolling army, which is being financed by Russians. I am going to get assassinated, aren't I? And you've got people who are Ukrainian trying to fight them out. So, and we're talking about losses. We're actually talking about the Ukrainian losses. Also, Fancy Bear has been used against their power grid. So, for a number of years, the power's just got off in Ukraine, completely down, using Fancy Bear. So, if you want to read, there is a peer-reviewed journal out there, which is a lot more coherent than I am. You can find it at the Journal of Applied Digital Evidence. And there's the abstract. If you want to read it, that's cool. Also, if you have something you think would be good for the Journal of Applied Digital Evidence, please reach out. We're looking for more submissions as time goes on. Do you all have any questions or comments?
Access to the journal is free?
Free.
Okay. Making sure.
It's not Sengris. I mean, it's not Elsevier. Also, if you want to pirate my books, I don't care.
You can Google it. I found it. Actually, I found this copy of it online.
I know, which is scary because I don't remember ever having a copy of it online. Anyone else have any other questions?
Hey, Bill, are there any openings for professors full-time?
We are looking for professors at Marshall. There's a tenure track, digital forensics, assistant professor opening at Marshall University. You have to have a master's degree. It really depends upon your background. I have a master's degree in journalism and an undergraduate in political science. So,
yeah, you have a question back.
Okay.
The DNC actively doing now to defend against company action?
Absolutely nothing.
No,
Nor the rest of the federal infrastructure as far as we can tell.
I have a question.
Yes.
Why would we blame the Russians or anyone else for something? Social engineering is exploitation of somebody's stupidity.
Right.
Or primitivism. Or limitations.
I understand.
So I wouldn't blame Russia at all. I would blame DNC or any other country which was exploited.
That's a good point. In that they're the one that fell for the social engineering. They're really at blame at the end. I know blaming the victim's not popular, but is that my blood point? Is that my alcohol point average or okay, 5? I'm a 5. Whoa, blood sugar. No, you got a point. In that it's really the DNC's fault in the end. They should have had an active security awareness program, which would fix this in the beginning. If you look at most breaches, they're always social engineering.
Yeah, we also have former First Lady whose server I could have, anybody.
Right.
Here probably 80% of people could have.
Yeah.
So why would blame somebody who had here?
That's the reason this doesn't have Russia in its name. It's not. It's an example of a case study where it looks like this is what CrowdStrike decided. So therefore, this is the case study of the CrowdStrike incident report.
Critical. I love it.
Oh, thank you very much. Awesome. How much time do I have left?
4 minutes.
Does anyone else have any questions?
4 now.
It's hard to see with these bright lights. I'm kidding. Yes, sir. You?
Do you expect this escalation from cyber to conventional warfare to continue? Russia seems to have done it in Ukraine. Do you think the United States and other nations?
Well, that's the question. Is that I talked to somebody who's in the U.S. military that recently on a asymmetric warfare exercise. So we're practicing for this in the United States and with our allies as well. So yeah, I mean, this is the new hotness. If you don't lose life in persecuting a war, or before you can roll tanks or you send aircraft, why would you not take down the air defenses? I mean, we did this in Iraq. I mean, if we want to talk about the Russians, yeah, they did this. In Iraq, we did similar things. We took down air defenses by sending out special Hewlett-Packard updates to their printers, then pivoted from the printers in order to take down things like air defense, radar, etc. So it's on both sides. It's not just one country that's interested in this.
Yeah, we can take also power grid, water supply, and
right, exactly.
critical infrastructure.
Right.
Yeah,
so this is just a case study, but we can do a case study as well on the U.S. doing the same thing. It's a brave new world. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Yes, you in the blue shirt.
On the topic of attribution, which you kind of raised there, what's your take on the neutral actors like WikiLeaks, which was mentioned in your abstract there, like in their role?
That's a hard one because each class is about Anonymous and WikiLeaks and what they were doing, and now I've got to the point where you can almost look at WikiLeaks as a non-state actor. I mean, they're actually. WikiLeaks as it exists now and Anonymous as it exists now, because it's not the same. I mean, this is not the summer LawSec. This is a different time. So they've sort of fallen out of favor, but I understand what you're saying. They almost became NGO. They became a non-governmental organization that was affecting foreign policy. So does Julian Assange need to be arrested? Maybe. Information wants to be free, but at what cost? Unfortunately, and if you're looking at it from the hacker community, we believe information should be free, but when it affects nation states, they're going to stand up because they're saying, you're affecting our specific. What's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, exactly. Our mission or whatever our goals are as a nation state. So.
Well, I said that they were neutral in quotes, right? So maybe they were more biased or more focused on certain outcomes.
Right. Yeah. So in the case of WikiLeaks, they do believe information should be free. Assange does have that hacker ethos, but there's a limit, unfortunately. And 90s, we ran up against the. Don't tell me stop. I'll give you the single finger salute. So there's a point where I don't know. I mean, I'm from the hacker community, I'm a hacker ethos, and information needs to be free, but there are limitations to that. Thank you all very much. And thank you for coming.